Welcome back to Smith History, separating the Smith from the myth. Today's episode is not about some historic event or a story from the past that shaped America. No, today's story is one that shaped me. It's a tribute to three men who helped guide me, steady me, and sometimes make me laugh when I needed it most. They weren't just uncles. They were anchors. They were color in the black and white picture of my growing up years. Their names were Dallas Smith, Dale McCauley, and Bob Smith. Three men who, in their own unique way, reminded me what family looks like in motion. Now, I don't believe in coincidence. They showed up exactly when I needed them. Let me start with Uncle Dallas. Dallas was my dad's younger brother. He was always laughing, always up to a little mischief, and somehow always driving something with a little chrome and a lot of character. Every car from the 1970s is a classic now, but Uncle Dallas made them cool way back when. When my family moved to Phoenix in the mid-1970s, Uncle Dallas was there, front and center. For a while, we lived with him and his wife Linda, their son Dallas Jr., who we called Bean. Those were golden days for a bunch of boys in a new city. He was full of energy, full of laughter, and a cool car parked in the driveway. His small house somehow never felt too small for family. He had a way of turning everyday life into adventure. I remember one day he drove us to an open stretch of land near the Phoenix airport. Now keep in mind, this was 1974. From that open stretch of land, we could watch the giant 747s come in low, so low they seemed close enough to touch. We stood there as those steel giants thundered overhead, the wind whipping our hair and rattling our bones. Illegal today? Absolutely. Unforgettable? Definitely. But Dallas had this gift for finding adventure in places no one else would look. That open field where me and my four brothers stood, along with my parents. The 747s came in so low you could almost touch the landing gear. As kids, we stood there squinting up at massive planes roaring over our heads, the wind knocking us back like rag dolls. It was magic. But that was Uncle Dallas, turning ordinary moments into lifetime memories. I remember many times him playing football with us on the blacktop. He took his hits, but he'd bounce up grinning through blood and bruises like he just won the Super Bowl. Maybe he needed us just as much as we needed him. His son Bean wasn't big into sports, and we filled that gap. And he filled ours with laughter, adventure, and heart. Uncle Dallas passed away about 10 years ago, a victim of diabetes. But every time I see a classic car gleaming in the sun, or hear the roar of an engine across the desert air, I think of Uncle Dallas and I smile. Because Dallas taught me to live life to the fullest and never lose my sense of wonder. Then there was Uncle Dale. Dale married my dad's sister Mary, and when he joined the Smith clan, it was like he'd always been one of us. He had this deep voice and a laugh that sounded like a motorboat sputtering to life, unmistakable and unforgettable. Dale was the kind of man who showed up. I remember the very first Monday Night Football game in September of 1970. He showed up at our house, and we enjoyed the game together. He played basketball and softball with my brother Jeff and me, never acting like he was too old or too busy to hang out with us. And when I hit my senior year of high school, he opened up his home and his heart to me. I lived with him and his family that year, and in many ways, I think that was the year I learned what patience and kindness really look like. He taught me to drive, something that could have been a disaster under my dad's watch. But Uncle Dale had this calm way about him. When I needed shoes for basketball, he drove across 3 counties to find size 14 sneakers that would fit. I'll never forget that. And Dale did more than help me with sports or cars. He helped me find faith. He was the one who took me to church in 1975 when we came back from Phoenix. That single act changed the trajectory of my life. It's where I met my future wife and where I gave my life to God. Years later, tragedy struck. In 1982, while helping my parents move, Dale stopped to check a trailer of furniture he was towing. A passing car hit him. Somehow he survived, but suffered a severe head injury that changed his life and ours forever. He fought for 25 years against the effects of that injury before passing away in 2007. But I will tell you this, his faith, his kindness, and his laughter never left him, and they've never left me. Even through the hardships, he remained a man of compassion, humor, and faith. Uncle Dale showed me that love doesn't fade with adversity, it deepens. And finally, there was Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob was my dad's brother too, but he was a character all his own. He had what my wife Patty calls Smith humor. A mix of teasing, timing, and just the right amount of trouble. A little dry, a little mischievous, and always just this side of smart aleck. He's the one who taught me how to play pool as a kid, and maybe how to bluff my way through life just a little. Uncle Bob loved to laugh, and he loved to tease. When my brothers and I got a little too wild as kids, he'd just grin, shake his head, probably remembering when he was the same way. Growing up, he was the kind of uncle who let kids be kids, and he joined in whenever he could. Later in life, Uncle Bob became a pastor. Eventually, he became my pastor. He was there for the biggest moments, giving the eulogies at both my mother's and father's funerals. And he did it in a way only Uncle Bob could. Solemn, yet laced with gentle humor. In typical Uncle Bob fashion, he managed to bring both solemn reflection and a touch of laughter, because that's who he was. Even grief under his care came with a smile, a little laughter, and a lot of hope. When he opened his church about a decade ago, he'd always invite Patty and me to attend. And when I showed up, he'd call me up without warning to lead the congregation in song. Now, let's be clear, I cannot sing. But Uncle Bob would just grin and say, "Brian, you don't need a good voice, just a good heart." He even asked me to give the sermon one night. That's how much faith he had in me. Sometimes more than I had in myself. And that was the topic of my sermon, faith. In 2017, my wife Patty, who was absolutely terrified of water, agreed to be baptized because of Uncle Bob. He was that trusted, that loved. And in that moment, I saw the full measure of the man he'd become. He passed away in 2021 from COVID. And though he's gone, his words, his laughter, and his spirit remain part of me. He cared about our spiritual well-being, but he also cared about joy. And I think he'd want us to remember him with both tears and laughter. 3 uncles. 3 lives that intersected with mine in ways I still remember through my days. They each played a part in my story, whether it was through faith, laughter, or adventure. They shaped my life, steadied my path, and reminded me again and again to live fully with all my heart and never forget where I came from. Dallas was joy and imagination. Dale was patience and faith. Bob brought laughter and belief. They taught me how to live, how to care, and how to stand tall. They reminded me that family isn't just who you're born to, it's who shows up when it matters. When it comes to those who shaped my life, I say uncle. They didn't just make my childhood memorable, they gave it color. And I don't believe for a second that that was a coincidence. Uncle Dallas, Uncle Dale, Uncle Bob, thank you for everything you did for me. This has been Smith History, separating the Smith from the myth. I'm Brian Smith, grateful for the uncles who helped turn my story into something worth telling. Thank you for listening, and as always, remember, every family has a story worth preserving. Sometimes you just have to separate the Smith from the myth.